Hello everybody, this is the iFan channel here, and this is going to be the last video in a 5-video series. I'm actually going to go to Rome, but first off I'm going to stop by Istanbul because the layover is in Istanbul, and then after Rome I'm going to fly to Barcelona and then back to Boston. Now instead of laying over at the main Istanbul airport, this plane would actually lay over at Istanbul Sabiha Gökçen Airport. After spending some time at the boarding gate, I finally arrived at the plane, and over there is the plane. I just got on the plane now, and as you can see, this plane is quite Spartan without really any infotainment screen, and instead I believe this is actually a table, and these are some manuals over here. The legroom is quite good, especially given the fact I could actually put my backpack on the overhead compartment rather than below my feet, unlike in Play Airlines. But the seats do not recline, so I'm basically fixing this position. So I don't know how easy it is to sleep on this plane, but I'll try sleeping. So guys, see you guys soon. After about 5 hours on a plane, at exactly 8:05 a.m. in Turkey time, I finally arrived in Istanbul, Turkey. Yeah, the plane does arrive on time, but the problem is the seats are quite uncomfortable and not very supportive and cannot recline. So I basically only slept about 3 hours, and can't really sleep after 3 hours. Basically around 7 o'clock-ish in Dubai Standard Time. I just passed the security gate of the Sabiha Gökçen Airport in Turkey, and as you can see, due to the fact it's around 7 o'clock in European time, I'm going to buy some breakfast. As you can see, this is a Big Mac, a fries, as well as, you guessed it, a Sprite. I'm going to eat, charge my phones, and then I'm going to see you guys when I'm on a plane. After eating and going through the boarding gate, getting bussed, and then getting into the plane, I'm finally in a plane now. This is the same plane. Essentially, it's a bit different, but it basically looks quite similar, especially given the fact there's a table, essentially no charging ports. I could not find one, and basically seats which are not reclinable, kind of like in Vietjet Air. So why not? I'm actually going to take a rest. I'm going to see you guys in Rome. After about 2.5 hours, I'm very close to Rome now, and I just want to tell you guys, this plane sort of does have Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi does not really access the internet. Basically only access the Pegasus Cafe menu, as well as some movies, music, games, and flight info, unfortunately. And even though Wi-Fi did work on my Android, it did not really work on my iOS device. After about 25 more minutes, I finally arrived in Rome over here, guys. Yes, the Fiumicino Airport, basically near the Tyrrhenian Sea. After spending some time at the border control, I'm finally on the train, which takes me to Roma Termini. And why not? I'm thinking of buying some lunch at the Roma Termini station around that area. So I'll see you guys then. After sorting out all the SIM card issues for about an hour, I finally arrived at the restaurant. This is actually the Cleopatra Pizzeria, and over here some water, as well as, you guessed it, some pizza. So I'm gonna eat and then check into the hotel because some of my phones are running out of battery. Now after I eat, due to the fact my phones have run out of battery, I decided to check into my hotel. As you can see, this is B&B Roma San Lorenzo Termini, with quite a small bed, but an okay bed at least. And let me turn on the lights for a bit. And over here is what the room looks like, quite basic, with a charger and stuff, and I believe a twin bed. And over here is the restroom with the bidet, a toilet, a sink, as well as, you guessed it, a shower. So it's quite comfortable. I'm actually going to sleep here for about 3 nights before I return. But it's definitely not going to be as good as the Marriott in Dubai. That is definitely for sure a luxurious hotel. This is basically more of a bare bones hotel. So why not? I'm going to see you guys soon. Now, due to the fact much of my clothing is quite dirty, therefore I went to the Speed Queen Laundry. Yes, the Speed Queen Laundry, kind of like in Poland 2 years ago, where I went to a Speed Queen Laundry near the Osu station. Unfortunately, this Speed Queen Laundry is not 24 hours, unlike the one in Poland. It actually closes at 10 p.m. Okay guys, my clothing is in the laundry. I'm actually going to hit the start button sometime soon. Now, due to the fact my laundry is still in process, why not? I'd stop by the Carrefour Market, buy some water, and then walk to my hotel and pack my water and then walk back to the laundry place. I just returned from a supermarket and here's my water. I'm actually going to return to the laundry to continue drying my clothing and get back my clothing. I just finished my laundry and over there is a major square called the Piazza della Repubblica. I do think these are the buildings surrounding the piazza, and over there is actually the Repubblica train station. Basically, this Piazza della Repubblica is actually next to the Termini, which is actually Rome's main train station. Now close to the Piazza della Repubblica is the Basilica of Saint Mary of the Angels and of the Martyrs, which is a titular church in Rome, Italy, and it was built inside of the ruined frigidarium of the Roman baths of Diocletian in the Piazza della Repubblica. One of its architects is Michelangelo Buonarroti, and the construction started in 1562. I'm actually going to go into the Basilica to see what it's all about, but I have seen that it might be fenced, but I'm not too sure. Unfortunately, one of the Roman national museums are actually closed. As you can see, there's actually renovation. This building was actually built in the 4th century, yes, the 4th century, as part of the baths of Diocletian. However, despite the fact the 4th century museum did close, the Basilica of Saint Mary of the Angels and Martyrs is actually open, and why not? I'm actually going to go in to take a tour for you guys. I'm currently inside the church now, and as you can see, there are lots of ornate frescoes and it is absolutely beautiful in the inside. Despite the fact the outside is mostly subdued compared to other churches, the interior looks absolutely epic. Just look around. Basically, there are lots of frescoes, kind of like the Sistine Chapel, and it is incredibly nice in here. I'm sorry to have to be quiet. Just like in every other church I've been throughout Europe as well as in Vietnam. It's absolutely epic inside. Over here is the head of Saint Giovanni Battista, made by Igor Mitraj. Now, similar to the 4th century Roman National Museum, this building was made by brick as well as, I believe, some type of stone. Another church within the vicinity is actually the Santa Maria della Vittoria, which is also another titular church, but this church was built between 1605 and 1620 in a Baroque style. Unfortunately, this church would close in 15 minutes, but I could still go in and show you guys what it looks like in the inside. As you can see, based on the video, there are lots of ornate frescoes inside, which does make the inside quite beautiful, but it's not just the inside that's good looking. I do believe the outside is definitely a lot more beautiful than the previous church, and I do think both churches are dedicated to Saint Mary, which is the mother of Jesus. Unfortunately, there's enforced silence, so I'm not able to speak. I'm on my way to another church or attraction perhaps, and over here I do believe they do sell old Vespas inside. As you can see, these are actually Vespa motorcycles. And over here are some other Vespa scooters, as well as, you guessed it, an old Fiat 500. After a 5-minute walk, I finally arrived at the last church I'll show you guys today. And up there is actually the Colonna della Pace. And over there is actually the Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica. Similar to the other two churches I just showed you, this church is also dedicated to Saint Mary, which is the mother of Jesus. It is a major papal basilica as well as one of the 7 pilgrim churches of Rome and the largest Catholic Marian church in Rome, Italy. Basically, Marian churches are actually dedicated to Mary, which is the mother of Jesus. One of the famous architects is Ferdinando Fuga. It was built in a Romanesque as well as Baroque architecture, and it took more than 1,000 years to be built, yes. Basically, construction started in about 432 AD, but it was completed in 1743. Also, it could reach a height of 75 meters. Unfortunately, I do not think I could go in today, but I might be able to go in tomorrow. I'll show you guys what it looks like, but now I'm actually going to eat dinner. And I'll sleep at around 9:30 so I could wake up at 6 o'clock to show you guys the whole Rome, because I'm so tired, basically from the airport as well as the uncomfortable airplane. Now for dinner, I'm planning to eat at the Trattoria Angelo restaurant, and for my meal, I'm planning to eat the Buttaccini al Amatriciana. And over here is my meal. It is absolutely delicious. I'm gonna try it out, and then I'm going to return to the hotel to sleep for the night. I've just finished eating, and now I'm going to go to sleep. So see you guys tomorrow. Okay guys, a new day. It is now 6 degrees Celsius. Yes, 6 degrees Celsius. So it's quite cold outside, but luckily in the noontime it will reach 17 degrees Celsius, which means it will be quite good to go outside. So why not? I'm going to get some breakfast, and I'm going to eat whilst on the bus or the train. Now over here is my breakfast. I'm planning to eat lunch at around 11:30 or noontime. So I actually bought the small bread. It only costed like 35 euro cents, basically about 40 US cents, so really cheap. I've just finished breakfast, and here's the first attraction I'm gonna visit. Yes, it is the Trevi Fountain. Now as for this fountain, its architect is Nicola Salvi. It was built between 1732 and 1762 by Giuseppe Panini and several others, and it actually stands 26.3 meters high and 49.15 meters wide, and is the largest Baroque fountain in Rome and amongst the most famous in the whole world. Now I basically moved a bit further from the fountain to show you guys what the fountain looks like. And over here is the Trevi neighborhood. One fun fact about this fountain is that this fountain does have a coin tossing tradition. So basically you stand with your back to the fountain and you use your right hand to toss the coin over your left shoulder. However, I believe you cannot swim in the fountain, unfortunately. Another attraction within walking distance of the Trevi Fountain is the Pantheon, which was used as a Roman temple and now currently a Catholic church. It was built in the 2nd century AD, and next to the Pantheon is actually the Piazza della Rotunda. Let me tell you guys a story about the Pantheon. The Pantheon was built on the site of an earlier temple commissioned by Marcus Agrippa during the reign of Augustus, which is between 27 BC and 14 AD. And basically the previous temple actually burnt down, and then this temple, the Pantheon, was actually built, ordered by the emperor, whose name is Hadrian. The Pantheon could reach 43 meters. It is built using the ancient Roman architecture, and it buried many people, including Raphael, Victor Emmanuel II, Umberto I of Italy, Margherita of Savoy, Sant-Angelo Castle, Perino El Vaga, amongst several others. So why not I just enter the temple and Catholic church to see what it's all about. Now I'm currently inside the Pantheon, and this is what the Pantheon looks like. Up there is actually the roof and a dome. And let me show you guys some famous people buried in here. Here is a tomb of Raphael, who was a famous Italian Renaissance artist. Over here are 2 tombs actually of King Umberto I and Margherita di Savoia. Basically Umberto I is the 2nd king of Italy. And over here is Chapel St. Joseph of the Holy Land. On the other side you can see the Chapel of the Annunciation. And fun fact about the Pantheon, the height to the oculus as well as the diameter of the dome are exactly the same, 43 meters. Lastly, in this church, I just wanted to show you guys the tomb of Victor Emmanuel II, who was the 1st king of Italy. I just left the Pantheon, and with the height to the oculus as well as the diameter of the circle being the same, I do think the Romans were very good at maths as well as architecture. And this is what the Pantheon looks like. If you were to walk 5 more minutes, you would actually find out the Piazza Navona, and over there is the St. Agnes in Agon Catholic Church, which was built in the 17th century. Now the Piazza Navona is one of the many public open spaces in Rome, Italy, and it was built on the site of the 1st century AD Stadium of Domitian, and it follows the form of open space of the stadium in an elongated oval. And over there is one of the famous fountains, essentially the center fountain. Many people in ancient Rome actually go here to watch the game, in which in Roman it is called Agon. Basically this place becomes known as the competition arena or the Circus Agonalis. There are 3 fountains in this square, as you can see, and there's also a lot of Baroque architecture around the square as well. Over here is the most famous fountain. It is actually called the Fountain of Four Rivers, Fontana di Quattro Fiumi, and it was designed in 1651 by Gian Lorenzo Perini for Pope Innocent X. And the fountain in the south is actually called the Fontana del Moro. And if you were to go here, the fountain up in the north is actually called Fontana del Nettuno. I'm now going to go into San Agnes in Agon, which was built in 1652 by two architects, Girolamo Rinaldi and his son Carlo Rinaldi. I'm now inside of this Baroque church, and as you can see with all the ornate frescoes, this church is also beautiful, just like any other church throughout Rome, Italy, especially the more major ones. I'm currently outside the church now. Unfortunately, just like every other church, you do have to be quiet, so therefore I cannot really speak loudly inside the church. Now on my way to another attraction, let me show you guys an obscure person. This is Marco Minghetti, who was the president of the Council of Ministers of the Kingdom of Italy. Another thing I see is a typical farmer's market. Over here are some fruits and veggies, and over there are actually some clothing you could actually buy. Now this market is located at Piazza Campo dei Fiori, and up there is a statue of Giordano Bruno, who was a Renaissance philosopher and poet. Now lots of you guys might know about the Roman Forum, but here is actually a lesser known Roman ruins, which is the Lago di Torri Argentina, which means Argentina Tower Square, and is a large open space in Rome, Italy, with 4 Roman Republican temples and the remains of a Pompey theatre, and it is in the ancient Campus Martius. This Roman ruins was founded between the 4th century BC and the 1st century AD, and it was built during the Roman Republic as well as the Roman Empire. Basically, the name of the square actually comes from the Argentina Tower, which does take its name from Strasbourg, whose Latin name was Argenturatum, not the country of Argentina, by the way. Now basically, these are what the temples would look like in today's world, but because they've been decayed over many thousand years, this is what the Roman ruins now looks like. I'm now inside the exhibition for the Argentina Tower, and over here are actually some ornaments as well as fragments over here. And this is actually a fragment of a female deity, and if you were to walk more, you would find some more fragments as well as architectural ornaments. Over here is some other ancient Roman fragments. Some more. And if you were to go a bit further, you would actually find stuff in the Middle Ages. Over here are ancient Roman inscriptions. And over here are some artifacts from the Middle Ages. At the other end, you also find a fragment of a female deity, and over here are actually Renaissance artifacts. I'm currently outside of the exhibitions now, and let me show you guys what the temple looks like. Over here is Temple D. As you can see, it would have been a rectangular temple, but this is what it currently looks like today. And I do believe over there are actually architectural plans for all these temples. This was built by Roman concrete at the beginning of the 2nd century BC, and it is the largest temple out of the 4. This temple is Temple C. It was built during the beginning of the 3rd century BC. It is a bit smaller than Temple D, but it would have been rectangular as well. And over here is what Temple B would look like. As you can see, a circular shape rather than a rectangular shape. It was actually built in the end of the 2nd century BC. And lastly, this is Temple A, built in the middle of the 3rd century BCE. And I do believe over there is actually a stray cat. There are lots of stray cats throughout Dubai. And I do believe this is one of the smaller temples. It is in a rectangular shape, just like Temple C and D. And lastly, let me show you guys what Campus Martius looked like during the Roman Empire. As you can see, over there are actually the 4 temples, and over there are the surrounding buildings. Many of these buildings were destroyed over the years, unfortunately, and this is what the landscape looks now with the more modern buildings around this region. For lunch, I'm going to eat at the Vini and Cucina Blasi. I actually chose this meal, which is spaghetti al ragu. So why not, I'm going to show you guys the meal and what it looks like. Over here it is. It's blazing hot and I think very delicious. So I think I'll eat and then I'm going to go to another attraction. Now after eating lunch, I decided to walk to the Colosseum. But first off, I want to show you this. It is actually a Roman ruin of some sort. And I do believe it is the temple of the nymphs over here. If you were to walk several hundred more meters, you would actually see the Victor Emmanuel II Monument, who was the first king of a unified Italy. Italy was actually unified in 1861, and this monument was actually inaugurated in 1911, despite the fact construction lasted between 1885 and 1935. This monument reaches a height of 81 meters. One of its architects is named Giuseppe Sacconi and occupies the site between the Piazza Venezia and the Capitoline Hill. And since admission is free, why not? I'm actually going to go in. Basically, I'm now inside of the neoclassical monument and let's see what it is. After climbing about 100 steps, I finally reached what is amongst the higher levels of the monument. And as you can see, the view of Rome is absolutely stunning from up here. Over there is the Trajan's column. Over there, however, is actually the Santa Maria di Loreto Church. And if you were to see over there is actually the Church of the Most Holy Name of Mary at Trajan's Forum. Over there is the altar to the Fatherland, and down there is actually Piazza Venezia. Unfortunately, I do think there's some construction, so I might not be able to show you guys what it is. But those two flags are actually the flags of Italy. I'm on the other side, and over here is actually the Augustus Forum. And if you were to go here, you would see the iconic Colosseum. After paying some money and taking a lift, I finally arrived at the very top of the monument. Yes, the very top. And over here is the Colosseum, as well as the Roman forms. And the view up here is quite impressive. As you can see, this is basically the skyline of Rome. And if you were to see the building down here, it kind of looks like the Colosseum, but it's actually the Teatro di Marcello. And this big building over here is actually the Torre della Paterina. Also included in the several euros I paid for the other ticket, I get to go in here. As you can see, I do believe it's an art museum of some kind, and it does include sculptures created by Angelo Zanelli. This museum actually highlights the construction of the monument. As you can see, there are actually some ornaments inside the museum over here. I'm now outside the monument and I'm actually going to get a Rome pass to actually get to the Colosseum, as well as several others for reduced prices. I'm now walking around Rome, and if you could see, there are actually several different Roman forms within this vicinity. After some walk, I finally arrived at the tourist info point, which does sell the Roman pass. So I'm going to buy the Roman pass and then go towards one of these. Yes, the Colosseum and the Roman Forum. After buying the Roman pass, I'm finally in the Colosseum, which was an elliptical amphitheater built under the rule of Vespasian as well as Titus between 70 and 80 AD. Despite its age, it's still the largest standing amphitheater in the world. After several minutes of confusion at the ticketing office, I finally arrived at the entrance of the Colosseum. Yes, I'm currently on the second floor of the Colosseum, and over there is the Mussolini epigraph. Some fun facts about the Colosseum is that the Colosseum was built of travertine limestone and brick-faced concrete, and it could hold an estimated 50 to 80,000 spectators, having an average audience of 65,000. Yes, that many people in a stadium. Crazy. The Colosseum was originally used for gladiator contests, animal hunts, public executions, reenactment of famous battles, and dramas based on Roman mythology. After the fall of the Roman Empire, it ceased being an entertainment place and it became a place for housing, walking, as well as for religion. Over here was what the Colosseum would look like during the Middle Ages. And over here are some Middle Age artifacts, some which are actually broken. And over here is the seating hierarchy for the Colosseum. As you can see, basically the best of the best get to sit in the front, whilst the worst of the worst, basically all the plebeians, have to sit in the back seats without very good visibility. I'm currently in a temporary exhibition now, and over here you could actually see some of the Roman innovations throughout the years. Basically over here, I believe, is one of the Roman innovations, as you can see. And over here is another. Actually, this actually tells the wind direction. And over here is a 3-masted crane. And this might look similar, but it is actually a leveling machine. Over here is a much bigger machine called the scaffolding tower. I'm now outside in the Colosseum. As you can see, that is actually the bottom floor used for fightings as well as gladiator events. Specifically nowadays, this would be the arena and this would actually be the underground. I'm currently in the first level of the Colosseum again, and let me show you guys what the Colosseum looked like in 1874, basically before the underground was digged. And this is what the underground looks like today. It actually opened for the first time in history 2 years ago after renovations took place. Now if you were to look more closely, that is actually a Christian cross. I just exited the Colosseum, and as you can see, there are actually 2 arches. This is actually the Arch of Constantine, and the other is actually the Arch of Tito. The Arch of Constantine, as you might know, is actually dedicated to the Emperor Constantine the Great and was commissioned by the Roman Senate to commemorate Constantine's victory over Maxentius of the Battle of Milvian Bridge in 312 AD, and this arch was actually found in 315 AD. The other arch, the Arch of Titus, is even older. It was actually founded in AD 81, yes, 81 AD, by Emperor Domitian shortly after the death of Titus to actually commemorate Titus's official deification and the victory of Titus together with their father Vespasian over the Judas rebellion in Judea. The Arch of Titus later became the symbol of the Jewish diaspora and then was used as the emblem of the state of Israel. And these 2 arches were inspirations for the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. Now next to the Roman Forum is actually the Basilica di Santa Francesca Romana, which does incorporate part of the Roman temple of Venus and Roma, and it does hold the body of Pope Gregory XI. So why not, I'm actually going to go in to see what it is all about. Over here is what the Basilica looks like. As you can see, just like all other churches throughout Europe as well as Italy, this is impressive. This basilica is built under the Romanesque style. It is now dedicated to Francesca of Rome since the 16th century, but it used to be dedicated to Mary. It was actually founded in the 8th to 10th centuries AD. After my time at the Basilica and at the Colosseum, why not I just head up to the Capitoline Museums, which I believe is on top of this hill. I believe this is the Capitoline Hill. Now on this hill, on the way to the Capitoline Museum, you can actually see this, which is the very famous Roman Forum, and this is actually an arch. Specifically, it is the Septimus Severus Arch, which was erected in 203 AD to celebrate the defeat of the Parthians. Over here is actually the Senatorial Palace, but unfortunately, I do believe it's temporarily closed. It was actually built in the 12th century on Roman foundations, and on the top there's actually a bell tower, and there are actually some elements by Michelangelo, as you can see. Basically, I'm now on Capitoline Hill, which is one of the 7 hills of Rome. There's several other hills in Rome. These are what the 7 hills of Rome look like. There are several cities in the US that claim to be built on 7 hills, including San Francisco, Worcester, Mass, and even Somerville, Mass, which is next to Cambridge. Over there is the Capitoline Museum, and why not, I'm actually going to go in there to see what it is all about. Basically, this Capitoline Museum's history could be traced to 1471, when Pope Sixtus IV donated a collection of important ancient bronzes to the people of Rome and then located them on the Capitoline Hill. And because it opened to the public in 1734 under Clement XII, the Capitoline Museums is one of the oldest museums in the world. One of the many architects of this museum is Michelangelo from the 16th century. In ancient Rome, there are multiple languages being spoken, including Latin, Greek, and of course Hebrew down there. As you can see, all of these inscriptions are actually in Hebrew. And down here, even more inscriptions, as you can see. And I do think these are actually tombstones, but I'm not too sure. Over here, some more artwork by the ancient Romans. I just got upstairs, and over here is a sarcophagus of Quinta Flavia Severna from the second half of the 3rd century AD. As you can see, there's a ton of artistic details, as well as this as well. I'm now in another building. It is called the New Plaza, and it was new because it was built following Michelangelo's plan. And if you were to go in this room, it would show you some heads, yes. Over here, heads of various famous people. And I do think this is what the Capitoline Museum is. Over here is the Senator's Palace. Over here is actually the square. And over there is the building I'm currently at now, which is the new plaza. And this is actually the old plaza. And these are actually the stairs leading to the Capitoline Museum. This is what the Senator's Palace looks like. And over here some more Latin inscriptions, as well as sarcophaguses, as well as, you guessed it, a statue of Hercules. Over here is the statue of the god Marforio, and in this hallway you find statues of numerous gods and goddesses. Basically here as well. If you were to go into this room, you find out the Grottino, which is actually a little cave, and is a masonry structure that extends beneath the retaining wall that supports the church of Santa Maria in Araceli, but it was partly destroyed in the 17th century to make do for this building. And this is what the Grottino looks like inside. This room, as expected, is the Egyptian room, and over here is actually the Sphinx of the Pharaoh Amasis, and over there is another Sphinx, and I believe that is some sort of like sculpture or something. It is actually a statuette of the Pharaoh Ramses II, one of the more famous pharaohs in ancient Egypt. And over here, as expected, is a monkey. This is another monkey, and this is actually a sparrowhawk. A fun fact about this exhibition is most of these antiquities came from excavations conducted in 1883 in the area of the Temple of Isis and Serapis in the Campus Martius, which is nearby. And these are actually not made in Egypt, however, even though you might think they're made in Egypt. In fact, they were all made in Rome. I'm now on the second floor of the new palace, and over here is actually the Room of the Doves. It is named like this because of this piece of art over here. As you can see, there are actually 4 birds on this bronze bow. If you want to look more closely, these birds are actually called doves. And guess what? There are lots of more heads in this room. In this room is actually a statue of Aphrodite, which is known as the Capitoline Venus. And it is slightly larger than life size, but was found sometime between 1667 and 1670 near the Basilica of San Vitale, between the Curno and Vimino Hills, and it was given to the Capitoline Museums by Pope Benedict XIV in 1752. And here's what the statue looks like. Yes, as you can see, luckily her hands did cover the stuff. And of course, there are a lot of statues in this hallway as well. Now, all the sculptures and works you see in this museum are actually arranged by Alessandro Gregorio Caponi at the behest of Pope Clement XII, and it has been the same ever since 1734 when it first opened. I'm now currently in the Room of Emperors, and over here they show portraits of Roman emperors as well as members of the imperial families. As you can see, even more heads. Next door is actually the Room of Philosophers, which shows all the Greek poets, philosophers, as well as orators. And over here are 2 statues of Socrates. Next to the Room of Philosophers is actually the Great Hall, as you can see, with all the frescoes and stuff on top. Now, this room is the most representative space in the museum. But let me tell you something. Unfortunately, due to the fact that the video will be so long, I'm actually going to skip some rooms to actually shorten the video. So I'm actually going to fast track and show you guys the more important highlights of this museum. I'm now back in the old building, and over here are some sculptures, including statues as well as feet. Yes, feet. This museum also has an exhibition called the 16th of October in 1943. And inside you see that more than 1,000 Jewish people have been arrested by the Nazis on this day, and many of them were later killed. Basically, there were only 16 people who survived this incident. 1943 also happens to be the same year Benito Mussolini essentially stepped down and he was arrested. Basically, all of you guys know that Benito Mussolini was the former Duce of Italy, and he was a fascist leader. Over here is the description of the incident. And you see the many Jews who were arrested on that day. In fact, many of them did die, and I'll show you guys this. This is actually a prisoner uniform many of these prisoners wore at the extermination camps. I do believe many of these scrolling names were like victims, but I'm not too sure. And of course, there were a lot of documents related to the arrest over here. I'm currently in the Grand Staircase, and the Grand Staircase was built in 1570. Between 1572 and 1573, there were 4 new reliefs being added over here. Basically, all these Roman reliefs actually came from monuments honoring the emperors Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius. Over these rooms, you would see a more modern taste. As you can see, I think these are Renaissance paintings over here. And up there are actually Renaissance frescoes. And in here is the room of Hannibal. And this is a chapel of some sort. I'm sorry, it's extremely dark in here. Over here, I believe, is the symbol of Rome. And it's not until you go into this room, I believe so, when you see more ancient artifacts. Over here are Greek artifacts. And this is actually Greek pottery in this room, as well as the next room, which show even more Greek potteries as well. Well, these rooms are called the Castellani Gallery because Augusto Castellani, he lived in Rome during the second half of the 19th century, and basically over the years he went to like Greece and then found out those like, you guessed it, artifacts. In this colossal room is actually the colossal head of the Emperor Constantine, as well as the colossal hand. Basically the head is 5 times bigger than life. In this room you'd also find the foundation of the Geoff Temple, as you can see here. Over here shows the Capitoline Hill over the time. As you can see, these are some artifacts during the Bronze Age in the Capitoline Hill. And this was what the Capitoline Hill looked like, with basically temporary structures and stuff. And if you see here, here's some pottery. And this is what a house looks like, quite temporary. However, during the 6th century BCE, this temple was built, and it was the Capitoline Jupiter Temple. Here is actually a rendering of today's Capitoline Hill. And over here, remains from the Jupiter Temple. As you can see, these are all the remains over the years. And this is what the temple would look like if it still existed. Unfortunately, I don't think it existed anymore. And the very last room I'm going to show you guys is the medieval room. As you can see, it is full of medieval paintings and sculptures and stuff. And this as well, which also comes from the medieval era. I'm currently outside the museum now. Unfortunately, the museum is closed, but I do absolutely recommend visiting this museum because it includes basically every single artifact from ancient Rome and even ancient Greece as well. And I learned about a temple which was built on this site. Yes, a temple. It is essentially the Louvre but for Roman artworks. I'm sorry if I did not show you guys every single place. If I show you every single place, it'll be extremely long. And also, I basically did not even go to the 2nd floor of the museum. What I meant is the 3rd floor of the old palace. I'm now going down the Capitoline stairs, and why not? I'm just going to get some dinner. My feet are all worn down after walking so much. I've not ate since noontime, and it's now about 7:30. And also, my phones ran out of battery, and their respective battery packs also ran out of battery, so I can't really recharge my phones anymore. So why not? I'm just going to get dinner. Okay guys, for dinner I'm actually going to eat at Pizza Florida. Why not? I'm actually going to buy some pizza and show you guys what it is. Over here are my 2 slices of pizza as well as calzone, and I paid 10 euros for this meal. So why not? I'm going to eat and then see you guys at the hotel. After eating dinner, I headed back to the hotel, and now I'm actually going to sleep. So I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. Good morning. I'm now going to eat lunch. I'm sorry, my wallet got stolen at the laundry 2 days ago. I only found out like yesterday, and I basically went to the police station to actually file a report that a thief actually stole my passport wallet, which contained basically about $150 worth of cash. So why not? I'm actually going to go to lunch. Okay guys, now I'm currently in the restaurant and this is my tagliatelle, as you can see, with some meat. It tastes really good. I'm thinking I might eat and I'll go to the Roman Forum. After lunch I finally arrived at the archaeological park of the Colosseum, and the first thing you greet to is the Arch of Titus. Yes, the arch which does inspire the Arc de Triomphe. And why not, I'm actually going to go around and see where the Roman Forum is. After a several minute walk, I finally arrived at the Roman Forum, which is essentially the political and cultural center of ancient Rome between the 8th century BCE and about AD 608 during the early Middle Ages. And basically from the 8th century AD onwards, basically the Roman Forum is neglected, and hence many of the buildings are actually in ruins, as you can see. So why not, I'm actually going to explore this area as well as the Palentine Hill and see what buildings are still intact and what aren't. One of the ruins in the Roman Forum is actually the Basilica Iulia. As you can see, it was built in 54 BCE by Julius Caesar and again in 12 BCE by Augustus. And the Basilica did suffer multiple fires and it served several different social functions. And in the 4th century AD, it was rebuilt by Diocletian. After a 1 minute walk, you can actually find the Column of Focus, which is the last architectural addition made to the Roman Forum. It was built around 600 AD, yes. Basically after the fall of the Roman Empire. Basically this was built during the early Middle Ages and it reaches a height of up to 30 meters, which is quite tall. And during this time, Rome was actually part of the Eastern Roman Empire known as Byzantium. Over here would have been the Temple of Saturn, which was built in the 6th century BCE and basically housed the state treasury. However, as you can see, the remains of the podium does belong to reconstruction in 42 BCE, and it does stand in Capitoline Hill. Basically, this temple, as expected, would actually worship the Roman god named Saturn, and basically the builder was Tarquinius Superbus, and it was rebuilt under Munatus Plancus in 42 BCE. I'm now going to walk to another exhibition in this Roman Forum, basically the historic center of ancient Rome. But unfortunately, many of these roads are thousands of years old and therefore are quite dangerous. So I do have to watch my step before actually walking, because I don't really want to trip any bit. As you can see, yeah, basically the roads are like this. Over here is another very famous monument. It is actually the temple dedicated to Julius Caesar, who was assassinated in 44 BCE. So why not, I'm actually going to go in to see what the temple is all about. Over here is a Latin text, and if you were to go in, you'll actually see flowers as well as coins. I think people might toss coins to really donate to the forum. Over here is what I believe is the most well-preserved building in the Roman Forum, and it is the Temple of Antonius and Faustina, basically dedicated to Faustina as well as her spouse Antonius Pius. And then during the Middle Ages, it then turned into a church of San Lorenzo in Miranda. Basically between the Temple of Antonius and Faustina and another temple over here is actually a burial ground. Over here would be an archaic burial ground, as you can see. And I do believe this temple you could actually go in, so why not, I'm actually going to go into this temple. It is actually the Temple of Romulus, and it was built by the Emperor Maxentius in 307 AD in honor of his son who died in childhood. Over inside the Temple of Romulus, it does show pictures of the Roman Forum over time. As you can see, this was the Roman Forum in the 16th century, the 17th century, and then the 18th century, and then the 19th century. And over there are actually some medieval era paintings. I do believe it was used as a medieval temple. Over here are actually objects made in Italy during the 18th and 19th centuries. And these two are actually some of the first photographs of the Roman Forum as well as the Colosseum during the 19th century, I believe so. Actually, no, my apologies. These are actually in the second half of the 20th century, but do look kind of like 19th century photographs. Over here are some of the oldest cameras in the world, as you can see, from the late 19th century. And some of these are pictures of the Roman Forum during the 20th century. I just left the Temple of Romulus, and over here is actually Horea Vespiani, which meant Vespian's warehouses. I do believe these are built in AD 64, but I'm not so sure. but years later it is actually turned into a shopping center, basically to buy food and stuff, kind of like a supermarket. So now why not I just climb all the way up the Palentine Hill to see what it's all about. I'm now on my way to the Palentine Hill, and over there is actually Santa Francesca Romana, of which I went yesterday, and this is what it looks like from the outside. I finally got up the Barberini vineyard inside of the Palentine Hill, and after the fire of 64 AD, Nero actually incorporated the whole area into the imperial estate, and he might have used this place as a garden with luxurious pavilions. And over here is what the garden looked like. This would have been the former site of the Temple of Elagabalus, and this was built between 190 and 240 AD, but unfortunately only the foundation actually remains. And due to the name, the temple was probably dedicated to Sol by the Emperor Elagabalus, and later to the Jupiter Uter by Alexander Servus. And from this garden you could actually see the Colosseum. And up there, if you can't see, is the Church of San Bonaventura, which was built in 1625 by Cardinal Francesco Barberini, and it was built over Roman structures. And basically this Roman brick wall does separate the church from the vineyard. I'm so tired now. I went basically to the top of the hill, and over here is the Imperial Palace, which was built during the rule of Domitian by the architect Rabrius. Basically it was inaugurated in 92 AD and was the official residence of the Roman emperors, and it's divided into 3 sectors. Basically the 3 parts include a public area, a private area, as well as a garden. This sector, which is called Domus Flavia, would be the public area and official area of this palace. This part of the Imperial Palace would be called the Domus Augustana, which meant private apartments. Basically there are 2 stories. One is the same as the Domus Flavia, which is the public space, and the other is a basement. And I do believe over here is actually the 3rd sector, which is used as a garden, and as you can see there is actually a bush. So why not I'm going to go to the Palentine Museum to find out what it is all about. Unfortunately, because the Palentine Museum does require separate tickets, I'm not able to enter, but I could discuss about the Palentine Museum. Basically it opened in 1930, and it basically featured some excavations from the Palentine Hill back in the 19th century. So in the 19th century there were some people who basically excavated Palentine Hill and actually got some artifacts and put it into the museum over there. And lastly, over here would be the House of the Griffins. Basically during the Republican era of Rome, it stood on a Palentine Hill, but it was partly destroyed due to the fact the palace was built. Unfortunately, due to the rain, I do have to go on to the next museum, but this is the very last view. I do believe these are the Farnese Gardens, and let me find an exit or find some museum to go into. Over here is a clearer view of the Farnese Gardens, and they were finished between 1627 and 1635 by Duke Odoardo Farnese. Let me show you guys what the garden looks like. As you can see, I'm sorry, there's some rain, so I might have to leave the Roman Forum. I'm finally out of Palentine Hill now, and over here is actually the Neronian Cryptoporticus. Basically due to the fact it's an underground corridor measuring 130 meters in length, illuminated by basement windows. Therefore I decided to go here because it does not expose me to the sky. But over here are the stairs. Ironically, I basically returned to where it was. In the left room you would actually see a female Baroque dress as well as 2 Renaissance birds. And in the right room you would actually see some portraits, as you can see, some paintings, as well as a description. Specifically this guy is Ranuccio the First Farnese. This guy is actually Pope Paul III, and this guy is Odoardo Farnese, the guy who basically constructed the Farnese Gardens. Now I'm finally in the correct place, which is the 130 meter deep tunnel. And inside, this is what the tunnel looks like. I'm scared it might be super dark, just like at the maze in Vietnam, but I could actually turn on my flashlight, as you can see, and actually see better of what it looks like. I'm sorry, there might be tripping hazards, but I do think over there is an animation of some sort. Now, unfortunately, due to the fact there is actually rain in Rome, I did have to leave the Roman Forum, and I'm now in the B line. I'm actually going to get somewhere. I'm now on the blue line waiting for the train, and later I'm actually going to transfer over to the orange line where we'll actually arrive at Piazza del Popolo. I'm now on a blue line now, and unfortunately it's extremely crowded inside. Basically, after riding the blue line, I'm transferring to the orange line now. As you can see, this is what the orange line train looks like. And yes, it does go on the left side of the road, unlike the MBTA, which goes on the right side. But as you can see, I'm actually going to enter the train at this point. You have to wait for people to go out. Yeah, this train is also very crowded, just like the previous train. As you can see, I don't know if I could even go in or not. But yeah, it is much less crowded than the other train. I just exited the train, and fortunately the rain has stopped. So basically, I'm actually going to go into this Piazza del Popolo, which I do believe is a major square in Rome, Italy. Now, there are actually several structures inside the Piazza del Popolo, including an Egyptian obelisk of Ramses II from Heliopolis, which is actually in the center of the plaza, as well as, you guessed it, two twin churches. The left church actually denotes the Santa Maria in Monte Santo, which was built between 1662 and 1675. And on the right is Santa Maria dei Miracoli, which was built between 1675 and 1679. And basically between the two churches lies the Via del Corso. On Google Maps, it would actually look like this. And of course, that gate is actually the Porta del Popolo. Basically, this whole piazza was actually designed in neoclassical style between 1811 and 1822 by Giuseppe Valadier, and they actually did remove a modest fountain by Giacomo della Porta, erected in 1572, as well as some other insignificant buildings. And as you can see, this is actually the piazza in its current form. And the two fountains on the side denotes the Fontana del Nettuno over here, and over there is actually Fontana della Dia di Roma. Basically, in Italian, Piazza del Popolo actually means people square, literally, and public executions used to take place here until about 1826, the last public execution. And over there is actually Via del Corso, which is the center road of the square. Inside the Piazza del Popolo is actually a Leonardo da Vinci museum. As you can see, some of these are actually some of his innovations, including a bicycle. Well, actually, recent research did indicate that the drawing, which is here, is probably a late 20th century hoax. But over here is Leonardo da Vinci's sketch of a screw threading machine. Here are some of his paintings, some of which are actually recognizable. And here is one of Leonardo da Vinci's most iconic sketches, which is actually the Vitruvian Man. Basically, this drawing does depict a man in two different positions, one set in a square, as you can see, and the other in a circle. And over here is actually a precursor to the modern car. It is actually Leonardo da Vinci's sketch of a self-propelled car over here. Basically, he is an innovator and definitely for sure a thinker. Basically, over here are some of his other machines he has sketched over his lifetime, as you can see. And if you want to go here, Leonardo da Vinci actually designed an ideal city, yes. Basically, after the plague of 1484, many people did get sick, and therefore Leonardo da Vinci actually devised of a plan. Basically, he's also an urban planner as well. Over here is Leonardo da Vinci's idea of a multi-layered city. Leonardo da Vinci also drew sketches for the emergency bridge, as well as, you guessed it, scuba diving equipment. Let me show you guys what it is. Over here you could actually see Leonardo da Vinci did a sketch of a mirror's room. Yes, I basically went to a mirror room at the Museum of Illusions in Ljubljana, Slovenia, and this is what the mirror's room looks like. And over here is a sketch to the precursor of a modern projector. And all of you guys know this. Yes, Leonardo da Vinci did sketch a precursor to the modern aeroplane. In fact, he did several sketches. However, specifically this machine is called the arrow screw. And yes, over here is actually the painting of the Last Supper. Unfortunately, I did not get to go to the Last Supper in Milan because tickets actually ran out, but it's currently housed in the Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan. And of course he's known for anatomy as well, drawing several sketches of the human body, as you can see. And finally, despite the fact Leonardo da Vinci was a pacifist because there was war between France and Italy over the many years, he did sketch some military items. As you can see, this is actually a precursor of a tank. Basically 8 people inside the tank turned cranks attached to trundle wheels, which were in turn attached to the 4 large wheels. As you can see, these are actually the 4 large wheels inside. And here are some other military sketches he's created, including that of a cannon. Yes. And of course this is going to be the ultra iconic Mona Lisa, basically bigger than the one at the Louvre. And over here does show Leonardo da Vinci's timeline from when he was born to basically when he's dead. Unfortunately, I did leave the Leonardo da Vinci Museum. This is a final look at the Piazza del Popolo, and why not, I'm actually going to walk to the Castel San Angelo. But before going to the castle, why not I'd head out for dinner first. After taking a train to Vatican City, I finally arrived at this restaurant, and this is actually risotto alla carbonara. So why not I'm actually going to eat, and then I'm going to see you guys at the Sant-Angelo Castle. I've just finished dinner now, and I'm now going to walk to the supermarket to actually buy some water for the very last day in Europe. After buying some water, I finally arrived here, which is actually Castel San Angelo. It was built between 123 and 139 AD, and it was used as Hadrian's mausoleum, a fortress, and a castle, and it was once the tallest building in ancient Rome. Over here is actually the National Museum. Why not I'd go in to see what it is all about. Due to the fact I have the Roman pass, I only had to pay 6 euros as opposed to 13. And basically in the entrance you're actually greeted with 2 heads. As you can see, both are actually 2nd century AD heads. And walking a few meters more would show you guys the Fountain of the Bees from the 18th century. Here's a fun fact about this castle. This castle actually owes its name to a medieval legend. In 590, the Archangel Michael appeared here before Pope Gregory the Great to announce the end of a plague. But this castle actually existed since the 2nd century AD under the rule of Hadrian. So why not I just walk to another exhibition. As you can see, this is what the castle looks like in the inside. I do believe over there is a sphinx of some sort, but I'm not sure. And now I'm in an exhibition full of stone carvings as well as reliefs. As you can see, these are some reliefs over the years. And I do believe Alexander VI denotes the Pope Alexander VI of the 15th century. And over there is some Latin alphabet, as you can see. Basically, this room is called the Second Grotton, and it does host 3 large archaeological finds. As you can see, those are the 3. And I do believe down there are actually some ancient Roman ruins, just like at the Roman Forum and at the Colosseum. And finally, after several meters of walking, I'm finally in the official entrance of the National Museum. Basically, I'm now in the atrium, and why not I'm actually go up the ramp. I heard it's going to be 12 meters high, so why not I'm actually going to climb. Basically, over here is the atrium of Hadrian's mausoleum, and basically Hadrian's funeral actually go up these staircases. Yes. I don't know how steep it will be, but it might be a bit steep, so why not I'm actually going to speed up. Yeah, I know there's uneven surfaces. I needed to warn about uneven surfaces, yeah. So I have to be careful. I do believe once the surface flattens, I know I'm at the top. After quite a walk up the ramp, I finally arrive at another floor. Well, basically, there's another staircase. Basically, this staircase was created by Boniface IX at the end of the 14th century to reach the interior of the Roman cylinder. So why not I'm actually going to climb the stairs. After a flight of stairs, I finally arrive at another exhibition. As you can see, that is actually a 3D rendering of the castle. And over here it does discuss the castle as being a prison, military quarters, as well as museum. And here are some paintings of the castle over the years. Over here is a statue of Antonius Pius. And over here is a statue of Hadrian, the guy who basically built this castle. Unfortunately, I cannot show you guys video footage from downstairs. They did not allow any video, so I'm just going to include some pictures. But over here is, I believe, the very top floor. As you can see, here's actually a view of Rome. Unfortunately, the museum did close 30 minutes early, but here is a statue of Lord Savior, and why not, I'm actually going to go down. Yeah, I do have to watch my head. Basically, some of the doors are really short, and I'm only 5'7", which is short compared to an average European. But these doors are too short for me. Basically, I'm now going to go downstairs. Unfortunately, did have to leave the castle, and as you can see, this is actually the Sant-Angelo Bridge, basically also built by Hadrian. Basically an ancient bridge, as you can see. Now this ancient pedestrian bridge is actually between two modern bridges, which does allow cars. As you can see, that is actually the Victor Emmanuel II bridge, named after the first king of a unified Italy. And over there is actually the Umberto I bridge, named after the second leader of a unified Italy. Basically, this bridge was constructed in 134 AD to connect the center of Rome to, you guessed it, the Mausoleum via the river Tiber. Now, as you can tell, Vatican City is actually part of the same side of the river as the Castel San Angelo. So why not, I'm actually going to walk to Rome Center and then take a train. Now, due to the fact all museums are closed and basically it's dark, why not I just return to the hotel and go to maybe the last few attractions tomorrow before about 11, when I do have to be at the airport. Okay guys, I'm currently at the hotel and have slept one night, and today is the very last day. As you can see, it is a really nice morning out. I do not think it's raining today, so why not, I'm actually going to go out to maybe the last two attractions before I go home. Even though I did not finish the Capitoline Museum as well as the Sant-Angelo Castle and have missed many attractions, I'm actually going to return to Rome this summer or this winter or maybe next year. But in the next several years I'll be visiting Rome again, so maybe I'll be visiting all the other attractions that I not visited this year. So check out the next video, maybe part 2 below, if that were to be uploaded. But I'm not knowing if I would go to Vatican City on this trip. Maybe I would go to Vatican City on the next Rome trip. So why not, I'm actually going to go to Spanish Steps. On the way to the Spanish Steps, why not I'd stop by this church, which is actually the San Andrea del Frati, which is actually dedicated to Saint Andrew the Apostle. It was built between 1604 and 1826, so basically it took more than 200 years to be built. And this church is actually in the Baroque style. Just like many churches in Rome, it is also a titular church, and some of the architects include Francesco Borromini and Mattia de Rossi. So why not, I'm actually going to enter the church to see what it's all about. I'm currently in the Basilica now. Unfortunately, silence is actually enforced, so I do have to be quiet when speaking, like really quiet. And over here is actually a portrait of the late John Paul II, who was the former Pope of Italy. And as you can see, this basilica, just like any other basilicas, are very beautiful. I'm really sorry that you have to be really quiet, but just take a look at the inside. It's absolutely nice. After spending some time at the basilica and walking several more minutes, I finally arrived at the Spanish Steps. Yes, the Spanish Steps. I'm currently at the Piazza di Spagna, and the Spanish Steps actually connect the Piazza di Spagna to the Trinity de Monte Church up there. There are actually 135 steps. It was opened in 1725. The architect is Francesco di Santis, and the height is 29 meters. So why not, I'm actually going to climb all the 29 meters, which is basically nearly 100 feet up to the church, and then actually see what the church is all about. Fun fact about this stairway. This stairway was actually built with French diplomat Etienne Guiffers bequeathed funds of 20,000 scudi in 1725, linking the church under the patronage of the Bourbon kings of France at the top of the steps and a Spanish embassy to the Holy See in the Palazzo Mondodeschi at the bottom of the steps. Sorry if I do mispronounce some words, but why not? I'm actually going to go to the stairway, yes, and actually climb up to the church. I've basically shown you guys so many squares in this video, and the Piazza di Spagna is one of the most famous squares in Rome, and it actually owes its name to Palazzo di Spagna, the seat of the embassy of Spain to the Holy See. And why not? I'm actually going to go all the way up the stairs now. After about 136 steps, I finally arrived at the very top of the Spanish steps, and as you can see, this is actually the Trinità dei Monti. I'm actually going to enter, and here are some fun facts. Basically, I counted the number of steps, and I found out a set of stairs equals 12 steps. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then you get this, and then you climb another 12 set of stairs. Yes, basically there are about 136 steps, and the only set of stairs without 12 steps is actually the very first set of stairs in the bottom. The one I'm actually going to enter the church. And another fun fact is that there's actually an irregular butterfly shape in the Spanish steps. Unfortunately, I could not show you any videos inside. Silence is actually enforced. And as you can see, there are actually 35 steps, as well as another 4 steps. So basically nearly 40 steps to get up to the Trinità dei Monti. So now I'm actually going to go to another basilica near the Termini train station. Here are some fun facts about the Trinità dei Monti. Both the Trinità dei Monti as well as Villa Medici are actually owned by the French state, and the Trinità dei Monti is actually a late Renaissance titular church, and is famous for being on the top of the Spanish steps. The church's dedication is the Holy Trinity. It was founded in 1502 by Louis XII, and therefore it is still owned by the French state. If you were to walk for 2 more minutes, you would actually see this, Villa Medici. After several minutes on the train, I finally arrived at this basilica. It is the Basilica Papale di Santa Maria Maggiore, and it's going to be the last attraction I'm going to be visiting in Rome before having to catch the plane. Unfortunately, because I do have my rolly bag, which is required to go to the airport, and for some reason the Basilica did not want to hold my bag, and nobody wanted to hold my bag. Basically, I went to like even restaurants and stuff nearby. So basically, instead of going to the Basilica, why not I'd eat some lunch and then rush over to the train where I get to the airport. After eating and waiting for the train, I finally arrived on the train, and similar to the last train which took me from airport to Rome, it basically cost me 14 euros, yes, 14 euros. After a 35-minute train ride, as well as checking into the airport and going through security control, I finally arrived at the airport departure lounge. As you can see, I'm actually going to fly Vueling Airlines to Barcelona, and then from Barcelona to Boston, yes. Basically, Barcelona to Boston will be Level Airlines, I believe so. But over here is Vueling Airlines, which is sort of economy, kind of like Ryanair, EasyJet, as well as several other flights such as Wizz Air. And after waiting at the boarding gate, I finally arrived at the plane. As you can see, this is actually Vueling's economy class. There's no reclining seat, however, and also I do not believe there's an entertainment system. However, they do say they have Wi-Fi, but I'm not too sure. At least Level Airlines does have Wi-Fi. And as you can see, this is what the airplane cabin looks like. It's quite small. And out there is Ryanair, which is the cheapest airline in Europe, which basically flies to like airports like Paris, Beauvais, London, Luton, like some random small airports in Europe that are not even a primary airport, like say BCN, FCO. Well, this one is actually at FCO, but many of the Ryanair jets are basically not in Charles de Gaulle, Orly, Gatwick, Heathrow, some major airports. So why not? I'm actually going to see you guys when I arrive in Barcelona. After a 2-hour flight, I finally arrived in Barcelona. Yes, the Barcelona International Airport, known as BCN for short. And I'm now basically going to eat here. I think this is the only restaurant available at Terminal E. And I'm actually going to eat here before actually taking the level plane to Boston. Yeah, basically the last plane until I go home. And here you go, guys. Here's my lunch slash dinner. It is actually around 11:15 in Boston. So basically it's sort of lunch but sort of dinner. I'm actually going to eat another big meal at around maybe around 10:30-ish or 11 o'clock-ish PM. After eating, I arrived on my plane. I'm currently 1 hour into my flight, and unfortunately the infotainment system is not working, but I do think there's Wi-Fi. As you can see, you can actually connect to level Wi-Fi network, but I'm not sure if it works or not. However, because there's actually a backpack under my seat, therefore my leg room is not really that good. It's kind of hampered, but at least there's still a table, and of course, yes, the seats could actually recline, unlike the previous flight, and it is much better than any WOW or Play Airlines I've ever been to. This seems kind of like a more premium air, but the bad thing is you do have to pay for meals as well as blankets. After 9 hours of flying, I finally arrived at Boston Logan Airport. As you can see, this is what the airport looks like. I'm now going to go down, and my cousins would actually pick me up to my apartment. I now finally returned to my apartment, and here is a summary. I do think this trip is quite good, especially given the fact I did not have laryngitis, but there are some disadvantages, including the bad weather in Hanoi and in Rome, as well as, you guessed it, the stealing of my wallet, which resulted in me losing about $150. I'm trying to now contact the police in Rome to try to get some of my money back. I'm not going to get my passport wallet back, but I might get some money. I'm not sure if I could get some money, but who knows. But here is a summary. I actually flew from Boston all the way to Seoul on New Year's Day, and then from Seoul to Ho Chi Minh City, and then from Ho Chi Minh City to Hanoi. Basically, I had to switch hotels in Ho Chi Minh City because basically my family's home province, basically where they currently live, is quite far from Ho Chi Minh. It's about an hour away, so it's not really convenient, so I had to switch hotels. And then from Hanoi, I basically flew all the way to Dubai, and then from Dubai, I flew to Turkey, in Istanbul, and then to Rome. And then from Rome, I flew from Barcelona to get all the way to Massachusetts. So basically, here you go, guys. The trip is quite good. It has been quite enjoyable. I've experienced some new things in my life and stuff. But the problem is the weather, as well as, you guessed it, the stealing of my wallet. So thank you guys for watching. Please give a big thumbs up, subscribe for more videos. Yes, I'm actually going to take a rest now. It's been a long trip, and I really enjoyed the trip. Much better than a laryngitis-infested trip up Europe. But next summer, I'm actually going to improve it even further by not bringing any cash. The reason why I brought too much cash is because my relatives keep on giving me cash, despite the fact I knew that Vietnam and other countries actually do accept mobile payments and have ATMs. So if I need cash, then I could just run to the ATM rather than bring a boatload of cash.